Hi, welcome to I was about to say training webinar. It's not the training webinar. I was also checking to be sure that I turned my microphone on. It appears that I did. Welcome to the Feature Spotlight webinar. That's it. That's what we're doing. Hi, I'm Dale Franks, and we have a fair amount to cover today. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So today, we are going to talk about a couple of important things that have happened or that will happen in the very near future. So we are going to talk about the version 6.1.302 patch that we released at the end of last week. And moving beyond that to the upcoming versions of Process Director, we have some other enhancements and bug fixes that I'd like to talk about today. So with that, let's talk about version 6.1.302. So there was a critical bug in .300. We didn't find it in the beta, and we didn't find it in any of our testing. It affected only date-time controls, not date controls, not time controls, specifically date-time controls. Now, not only on forms, but in the UI itself, because many of the controls that you use whenever you create forms are the same controls that we use in the UI for the product. So for the date-time control, if your user account had a custom time zone set, or you had used the S time zone custom variable in your VARS files to set a default time zone, there was a date time conversion problem for date time picker controls under those circumstances. And it would be off by N number of hours. And it was off by a weird N number of hours. I was seeing a 25-hour difference on one form that I had, or not 25 hours, sorry, 15-hour difference on one form that I had. And I think we had someone who was saying they were seeing a 1 hour difference, and some were saying some time zones worked fine and some didn't. It was a weird error. So it doesn't appear to have kicked in for all time zones. It doesn't appear to have kicked in for the date picker or time picker controls. And it didn't kick in at all if you were using the default time zone. So it was super weird. However, if you are using a default time, a non-default time zone, and you're using a date time picker on a form, and you pick your value and you save your form, it would advance the time by N number of hours. So very strange, very important. So we found that, sent it over to the engineering team. The engineering team generated a patch. So we, as soon as we found it, we immediately pulled .300 off of the support site for download. And then on Friday morning, I guess, we got our patch release. And so we replaced that. So that is the current download. So the current version of the product is now .302. 302 patches that issue. It is, in fact, the only patch that we have for .300, because that was the only bug that we found that might be serious enough to cause that. And under some circumstances, it could be serious. It would certainly throw off your, if you had due times being set by a date time picker or what have you, or you were trying to schedule a meeting with a date time picker or something like that, then it would be wonky if all of the attributes that I list here on the slide were true. So it's fixed. We move beyond that. We've got it replaced. I think maybe there were just a couple of customers that had .300 and it was all on their development servers. So we found it and fixed it well before it could make it into production for anyone. So we have fixed that issue, and having done so, we can now move on to the things that we are working on for future versions of the product. So let's talk about enhancements. Most of these enhancements are not really changes to any of the objects. They are largely quality of life improvements, and some of them are actually fairly significant, at least in terms of implementation for ease of use for users. And so I just wanted to go over a couple of those, some of which I can demo or at least show, and some of which I'll just talk about. One of which that I'll talk about is MFA changes. There's no real change to what you'll see in the user interface for multi-factor authentication. However, we did change the operation of the Remember Me checkbox on the login page. Up until now, if you implemented multi-factor authentication, then every time you logged into Process Director, you would have to put in your 6-digit number from your authorization app. For example, I use Authy. And so for our documentation server, which is the one that I usually use for this specific webinar, when I turn on MFA there, then every time I logged into that server, I'd need to grab my phone, open up Authy, and type it in. Now we've changed it so that when you click the Remember Me button, you can wait for 30 days before it requires you to re-enter your MFA authenticator. So this was a request from one of our partners in the UK, I believe, who I also believe is here in the webinar, if I'm not mistaken. And they asked us to make MFA somewhat less irritating for the end user. And so we've done that so the Remember Me button works. Next is the extended user search. Now, there's not much to show you about the extended user search other than the fact that it, exists because it happens behind the scenes. Whenever you have a whole bunch of users, now I happen to be showing it here, even though I only have 10 users on this system, but the extended search checkbox, which you can check here, actually does a full text search on several of the columns inside Process Director, or inside the user account for Process Director. So you may remember how for version 6, we kind of extended this a little bit so that it would search for a specific text in one of these columns, and it would return the value based on what you put here. We've now extended this to a full text search for all of the user attributes. However, it is slower because it is doing a full text search. So it's great to have, and you can search with a lot more detail in terms of matching what your search string is. It will return more records, but because it is a full text search, it is going to be a slower search, so you do need to keep that in mind. Next is the provision users custom task. We had to make a little change to that because it was a little bit confusing. It didn't really change the functionality at all, but we did change how it worked. And where is my test form? I think this is my test form. Yes, here's my provision user. So we're going to open up the configuration screen on provision users. And unfortunately on this server, it opens the forms up very, very large. So I'm sitting here trying to resize this, and I'm apparently not hitting the right corner of the screen. And what I want to draw your attention to, and it is relatively minor, but it did cause some confusion, is down here where it says user's password. So with the provision users custom task, whenever you are creating a new user, the password is kind of important, and you do want to put a value in there usually for creating it. It's often a sample value like, password 1 to force a password change on first login so that they can change it from password 1 exclamation point to whatever they want. But whenever you update a record, the SDK does not allow you to change passwords because they're existing records. Your users already have a password and you don't want to mess with that. So what we've done, and we didn't do this before, but it's real simple. If you click the update instead of create user, and then you scroll down to find the password, it is gone. So we have removed it. So there was some confusion about how they try to update a user, and when they did the update, they'd try to change their password, and the password never changed. That's because we have intentionally prohibited password changes from the user update. So it doesn't work. However, if the password field is there, it is a little confusing. So if you hit create, or then you can create the password, but update, it removes it off of the screen so that you don't think that you can change passwords. The data list now has an event field. So on a data list control, and my data list form is right there, we will go ahead and we're going to hit update and run here. We're just going to run this form. Now, the way that I have this form set up now, and the way that you had to set it up prior to now, or maybe I saved it. I don't remember whether I saved it or not. I did save it. So what used to happen, because I've saved it, it now works. What used to happen was up here at the top, you would put a checkbox, and whenever you put a checkbox in, it would highlight all of the items that you had selected. And then I had this add row data button, and I've done this demo in this exact webinar in the past. And you would click add row data, and when you did, that was when the data would be added. And we had a customer that said, "Hey, look, it would be really convenient if all I had to do is just click the checkbox." And if you look down here at the bottom, you can see this array where I've got all of these fields, and they just wanted to be able to click the checkbox. And when I clicked it, they just wanted to be able to add these things to the array automatically without having to go and click this add row data button. Well, the easiest way, of course, to do that was to make this field or this control and make it an event field. So now whenever we look at the controls themselves and we go to the field properties tab for the control, we can see that it is now set as an event field. It's set as an event field because I set it as an event field, but the event field property now exists. And with the event field set properly so that you can use it as an event field, now that means that whenever you do a set form data, you no longer have to refer to some sort of external button. All you have to do is just use the event, which in this case is my data list 2 control. And so when I click the data list 2 control, it just clears the array and then adds all of the selected items in the data list directly to the array at the bottom of the form. And so now you don't have to click that extra button to make any of the magic happen. List box filtering. Since we do type ahead in the drop-down control, what we decided to do was to do something similar for the list box control. So I have this list box control on a form, and it has all of the entries that I want in it. And there is a new property down here at the bottom called support filtering elements, which means that whenever I run a form now that has this list box on it with support filtering elements checked, I now have what is essentially a type ahead inside the list box. So I intentionally had a bunch of words that had similar spellings. So I can go F-O, and I'll come up with all of these words. If I go F-O-R, I come up with fourth and forest. If I go F-O-U, I come up with for and fourth. F-O-L just gives me folly. And so this little type ahead box just allows me to search all of my items that exist in the list box so that I can just check the ones that I want. Just makes the list box a little bit easier to use and gives it that type ahead functionality that we already have in the drop-down. The list box is often a very useful control, especially if you need something like a drop-down, but you need to select multiple items. By default, drop-downs select a single item. And so adding that to the list box, especially if you have a large list that you're pulling from a database that may have, 100 items plus in it, it is much more convenient to just be able to search via a type ahead and to pull up just the options that you're looking for. If you filter an option and you select it and then go to a different filter, it doesn't uncheck the option. The option always remains checked, and you can clear your filters and just see the entire list and see all of the options that you've checked. We've added the drag and drop to knowledge views. So on the column tab for knowledge views, life has become just a little bit better. So when we look at the column tab here at the very far end, the far right side of each row, there is a drag and drop icon, and we can drag and drop all of our columns back and forth inside the knowledge view. So just as we did in .300 with all of the custom tasks on the custom task event mapping tab of a form definition, you can now do that inside a knowledge view and move the columns around. I think this is a big quality of life improvement. It is a major one because having to click these little up and down arrows over and over again is a monumental pain if you have 30 or 40 columns in your knowledge view. We've now ameliorated that pain to some degree so that you can just drag and drop those columns. Now, I should warn you that, as always, it is still a knowledge view, and that means that whatever the column is in the very first row, that is going to be the only clickable column. So just keep that in mind when you're reordering these columns, that you generally, from a user experience perspective, want the very first column in your knowledge view to have some sort of relevant data that the user will know is the clickable data that they need to click to open the knowledge view, whatever object the knowledge view is returning, to be able to open that object. The material UI icons, I don't know why it's on this slide. I think I also have it on the next slide. Or do I? No, I put it on the wrong slide. This is a bug, not an enhancement. So, we're here. I've listed it on the wrong slide. We might as well talk about it. It's not a big deal, except that up at the top, whenever you picked some of the icons, and I don't know exactly how to reproduce it. And in fact, in this version, I can't reproduce it because this is the version where it's fixed. So why even try? At the very top, you would pick an icon, and occasionally you would not see the icon. You would see the name of the icon up here. And I'm not sure why it happened. It was just one of those weird little bugs. But you're not going to see that anymore. We fixed that. So that's not an enhancement. That's a bug. And then there's the control click and the content list. And I think saying content list is probably wrong here. I think it'd probably be more correct to say in a workspace. And I actually don't have one that I can demo for you, but essentially what was happening was in the workspace, and it was really kind of inherent to the workspace by default. It wasn't something we did, but the normal browser operations that you do, like control click or right click and select open in a new tab, didn't work on that. So what we did is we went in and we added the architecture to change the default way that control works so that it would now respect sort of the browser standard link action commands. So rather than opening it in the same window, it would open it in a separate window if that's what you wanted to do. It now respects the browser commands, which I had never noticed before, but apparently we have a customer that has several workspaces where, everything worked, but their users didn't like it because it just didn't follow the way that they were used to working in the browser. So we managed to go in and improve that. So now the browser standard link commands all work inside the workspace. Now we get to some bug fixes. So most of these I obviously won't display because I couldn't in this particular version that we're looking at, but some bugs that we fixed, some of which were pretty important, like the case data type validation. So there was an issue where if you specified a data type other than text for a case property, it wasn't respecting that data type, and so it wasn't performing the proper validation to ensure that, let's say you had a form control linked to a case property, and the case property was supposed to be numeric, and somebody typed in text. Under some circumstances, it wasn't respecting that validation. It wasn't validating the text to say, no, this should be a number and showing you the appropriate error message. So we fixed that. There were some various content list display issues where the content list would do some kind of wonky things. Like you'll notice here that whenever we move around somewhere inside the content list, it kind of tracks with us, so that like when I enter this folder here on the right side of the page, you'll notice that it gets highlighted over here on the left side of the page. So it's supposed to track back and forth. We were having some tracking issues, or it wasn't always updating properly, or you'd make a change to an item in the content list on the right and it wouldn't reflect on the left. So basically we did some work to just fix some of those strange little display mismatches that we were seeing on the content list. The OAuth data source. This was a really simple one. We misspelled a text string, and because we did so, if you were trying to create an OAuth data source, the access token field simply wouldn't display on the form when you selected the OAuth data source. And if you know anything about OAuth data sources, the access token is kind of important. So we fixed that tiny syntax error, and the access token is now back for the OAuth data source. Now, this was a weird one, and I did come across this one myself, as did a customer who also reported it to us. If you had a knowledge view and you were in design view and you had the knowledge view set to export to CSV. So like here, let's just find a knowledge view. I was just looking at one and I don't know what I did with it. Where's my knowledge view? I want to show you how to make it happen. Well, fine. Then you know what let's do? Let's create a new knowledge view. So we'll create a new knowledge view. We'll just call it and we'll open it up. So if you go over here to the configure tab and you change displayed to grid to exported to CSV, and you filled out all of your CSV stuff here, and then you went to update and run. Well, what would happen is, well, it would say, what do you want to do with CSV? And we could hit save, and that would be fine. That would all work. What would happen, however, is this entire screen would freeze. So the export worked. It did what you expected it to do, and then it just froze process director, and you had to reload the screen. I don't know why it was doing that, but I ran across it, and it was mightily irksome at the time for what it was that I was working on. And it was apparently irksome for one of our customers who also reported it. So that no longer happens, as you just saw. Everything just worked. Another little weird one. If you had a control on a form, so again, we have a test form here, so I can blow it up and don't worry about it. So let's say I have this form here. It's called list box 1. And let's say I was to delete list box 1. So let's delete list box 1 and we'll save our form. And actually, I didn't mean to run the form. And then I go and I put another list box in. So where are we at? List box here. And then, well, it's called list box one. And what people were seeing was when they did that, an error would show up that said, hey, you can't have this list box one because you already have a list box on your form. It's kind of tricky because of the way that Process Director forms work with the Form Controls tab, where I've got list box one here, and note that it is marked for deletion. And then I put another list box one on, and the system was confused about, is it the deleted list box one? Is it the real list box one? And actually, if you put a real list box one, which apparently I've just blown up because I think I didn't save it before we came back over here. But in any event, this was all higgledy-piggledy because it was confusing the one that I had deleted, and it was treating the new one like it was a completely different control, which I guess kind of technically it is, but it had the same name, so it should match, but it wasn't matching. So basically, you were getting a horrific validation error. As you can see, I've gotten rid of it. So you were getting a horrific validation error. So let me go ahead and put a list box back on here, which should be called list box one. It's not throwing the error, obviously. I can't reproduce it. And I'll go ahead and save my form, or save and close it so we can go back and look at the Form Controls tab, and list box one is no longer marked for deletion. So it, did the proper matching, what we would expect. I had a list box one control. I deleted it. It was marked for deletion. Now I've re-added it, and now it's no longer marked for deletion because I've got a list box control named list box one. So this is working the way that we'd expect it to work. What we were getting was an error whenever you tried doing something like that. And so we got rid of that validation error. But I mean, there's a lot of hoops you have to go through to make that error happen, but it was repeatable. Another strange one. Normally, if you're a Windows user, you log in via Windows, like single sign-on or what have you. If you're a SAML user, you log in through a SAML system. And whenever you go look at users, and I don't have a server I would feel comfortable opening up to show you the user list. But you can see when it shows you the user type, it'll say, Windows or SAML or built-in. And it is possible to have a Windows user and you log in via SAML. Most of the time, that's not what you have. Most of the time, if you log in via SAML, you're a SAML user. If you log in via Windows, you're a Windows user. But you can have Windows users that log in through SAML. And when you do, we were getting some validation error messages where the system was like, okay, wait a second. One of these things is not like the other. And so we don't want it to throw those error messages. We actually want the system to be able to work to accept the appropriate login credentials, whether it's coming in from Windows or whether it's coming in from SAML. So we fixed that. Timeline activities that were set to, and let's take a look at a timeline activity. We don't have to guess. We can look at a timeline activity. So let's take a look at this timeline activity right here, and let's go to the due date. So if you have, when the time limit expires, cancel this activity, even though you will have, well, I don't even have a duration, so this would really blow up. Let's say I have 3 days here, right? What you would expect is for this activity to run for 3 days and to be able to calculate the due date and then cancel the activity on that due date. But that wasn't what was happening. What it was looking for was an actual due date set. And we don't really have an actual due date set anywhere here. So what was happening was, rather than respecting the 3 business days duration and calculating the due date based on that, it would just go and say, oh, okay, well, when this is done, cancel it. And you don't really have a due date set. So we'll just go ahead and cancel it now, shall we? So it was acting much in the same way that a wait task would act if you did not have The uh, what's the oh well the wait activity has different things, but wait activities has has a due date option that says wait until at least due date. And if you don't have that set and you hit a wait activity, it just cancels instantly. Well, that was what was happening to the user task. They'd get called. It would say, oh, you want me to cancel this activity? You don't have a due date. So, okay, I'll cancel it. And that's exactly what was happening. So it would hit the activity and it would just cancel it instantly. We don't want that, obviously, so we fixed that. The f-include bootstrap custom variable. I've had this turned on for a long time, and I've noticed some parts of the UI looked wonky, and I didn't like the way that they looked. I didn't know that what was happening was some of the bootstrap properties, which are supposed to apply just to forms, were being applied in the UI itself. Now, I've turned off f-include bootstrap, so I can't even show you one of the errors. Well, maybe actually, well, I don't know if I can now on this one either. Let's go to a form and let's look at the set form data tab. Okay, so see the way this select event looks? I was seeing this, except it was only half of the vertical height. Because it's actually showing me the drop-down control with bootstrap formatting on the drop-down control. So it's actually showing me this, the size and the rounded edges and everything. This is a bootstrap style, but it was only showing it to me at half height. Now, if we look at a server that does not have bootstrap turned on, because I turned it off yesterday intentionally, and so let's go to my other server, my training server, and let me log into that. If you have bootstrap turned on, you would never notice that. So if you go to any form on this server now, since I've got it all turned off, let's find a form. There is a form. And on this form, we can go into the set form data tab, and we'll see something a little different. As you can see, this is a much smaller drop-down. So I'm not actually using any of the bootstrap here, so that's all turned off. So this is now forcing me back to what the default should look like with bootstrap turned off. And then we can compare and contrast that to the way this one looks here, which is obviously a larger drop-down based on the styling. But this was not displaying properly. It was only displaying at half height. So all the text was cut off and whatnot. So we fixed that so that doesn't mess up the UI as badly. There's a CSS clash between the default style and the bootstrap style. And what was happening was the height property from the default style was winning, which we didn't necessarily want it to do. One final error, the default page settings. I can't demo this because I have accounts on both servers, but whenever you first log into Process Director for the very first time, it gives you, on version 6.1, it gives you a little screen for you to choose whether you want to show the home page or whether you want to show the content list. So normally when I log into this server, I've selected to show the home page. So it always shows me this whenever I first log in. In fact, it shows me this whenever I first log in, and I have to turn the content list on. However, you can select to see the content list whenever you first log on. So I should probably actually see that. And so this is what some people see when they log on. Now, this is a choice that you make. Do I want to see this when I log on, or do I want to see this when I log on? It's your choice, or at least it's supposed to be, but it wasn't saving your default page settings. And because of that, people weren't seeing what it was they told Process Director they wanted to see. They are now seeing what they're supposed to see. And with that, we are done with all of the content of today's webinar. So as always, I'd like to thank you for joining me. I apologize for going a couple of minutes long. That does seem to be my want to do that lately. I'll try to work on that. In the interim, have a great month. Thanks for joining me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'll look forward to speaking with you again next month. Until then, so long.